Papa Murphy's presents How to Change the Way You Pizza. Step 1, grab a delicious Papa Murphy's pizza. Step 2, bake. Step 3, chow down on the deliciousness. Right now, get the chicken bacon artichoke pizza for just $9.99 at papamurphys.com.
But of course, we kick off the show with breaking news that we had first on Twitter yesterday, and that is that the Pac-12 is divided. You know, they were having their meetings in Tempe, Arizona yesterday, where it is not 4 degrees like it was this morning here in Salt Lake. No, friends. But you know that the Pac-12 had their meetings, and there is a significant divide amongst Pac-12 membership on what to do with their TV deal. And the big problem here is obviously you have members who want the conference to survive, who are all in, long-term viability, let's expand. And then you have this group of 4 schools that we told you yesterday include Washington, Oregon, and the Arizona schools that do not want to expand, that do not see streaming as a viable option for Tier 1 rights. In fact, that is the dividing line in the conference. Sources tell us that Oregon and Washington and the Arizona schools will not ratify a TV deal, which is to say they will not sign a grant of rights if a streaming partner, in this case Amazon, gets all of the best games, and the only place to watch the biggest games in the Pac-10 will be on Amazon. Those 4 schools will not ratify that deal. And Jake, I think what this is a significant divide. And frankly, I don't know how the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever you want to call them now, I don't know how the remaining 10 schools in the conference overcome it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a clear path to overcoming, this issue, because the issue is not just financial. The issue is not just, we want to make $3 and you're telling us we're only going to make $1. That's not the issue here. The issue, very clearly is philosophical, meaning that, some of these schools don't believe that streaming is the best option for a Tier 1 rights package, meaning, hey, all of our stuff is going to be only on Amazon. We're not going to be on traditional TV, DirecTV, whatever your provider is, we're not going to be on that. We're only going to be on Amazon. And I think, some of these schools have real issue with that. And I can't say necessarily that I blame them for that. I would have some hesitation. I mean, as we've talked about at length on this show, on this topic, I think that Amazon right now is trying to push its way into live, streaming sporting events. That's what they're trying to do. The trouble is that it's a process to get there for the consumer, and that's always been the fight. So when you look at that and then you compound it with, hey, how many people actually have Prime accounts? How many people would actually think to go to Amazon Prime Video to watch a live sporting event? Like, there's a lot of questions here. It's not as simple as just like, hey, this is going to cost us a little more. Should we do it or not? It's not that simple. And that's why I say this conversation we've been having about, Washington, Oregon, like even Utah, I'd love to throw into this, even though Mark Harlan says they're not going anywhere. These major schools that are left after the SC UCLA departure, I don't know how you stay. I don't know what that looks like, because you have the major TV providers, the networks saying, like ESPN, Fox, like the major players we all know and love, saying that they're not particularly interested in paying Tier 1 costs. So the point is, hey, if we can't agree on Amazon and ESPN and Fox aren't willing to pay us what we want to be paid, where does that leave us? That's the issue here. That's the hurdle that I don't think George Kliavkoff has reconciled in his mind. I don't think he's put enough weight into how heavy this issue is for the conference.
Yeah, I think this divide in the conference is pretty significant. And I think when you look at who we're talking about, you're looking at, I think 3 of the most powerful schools in the remaining 10 with Oregon, Washington, and Arizona State. And I think when you look at Arizona and Arizona State are going to do the same thing. Washington and Washington State are going to do the same thing. Oregon and Oregon State are going to do the same thing. I think it's really fascinating to understand the power structure. And I think right now, it was pointed out yesterday, I thought was a really good point. Oregon doesn't currently have leadership in their institution. They are They are going through a leadership change. And as far as athletics go, I still maintain that Phil Knight is the athletic director, the CEO, the president, the god of gods at Oregon. But when it comes to grant of rights and making these deals, I don't know that Phil Knight has that much sway. I think when it comes to changing conferences and negotiating back channels, I think he has a tremendous amount of sway. But from what I was told yesterday, you're looking at a situation where you cannot get a grant of rights done with Amazon. And I think that's a huge problem, because the argument comes back to something that we've talked on this show about multiple times. Is a streaming deal for your best games, your what's called tier 1 rights, is a streaming deal for your biggest games really viable, especially when you don't have an institution south of Palo Alto? When you look at the makeup of the Bay Area, you start to understand that Cal and Stanford are the two most southern enclaves of this conference right now. And I think the Pac-12 is in a really precarious situation because they don't want to expand until they have a TV deal. But their TV partners, as it was explained to us yesterday, the deal that's on the table for the Pac-12 right now is $250 million a year. That's $25 million per school per year on average. But the bigger deal is, where's the balance of power in this conference? Are you really going to give every school the exact same amount of money? Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because Oregon and Washington have already said in a new deal, we want a larger slice of the pie or we're going to leave. I mean, it is that simple. And if you only have a small pie, which I know it sounds crazy, $250 million for 10 schools on average, that's not a lot. That's $25 million. Look at when you're a quarter of the income on your distribution deal that the Big Ten schools are at. Like, that's insanity when you're talking about merely trying to survive. So what you find out is this is a divided conference, and I think there are a pretty significant chunk of members in the Pac-10 right now that want out. I think that's the only conclusion you can draw here, is this conference is trying to find a way to stay together. And George Kliavkoff is not the guy pulling the strings, in my opinion. I think the presidents and the athletic directors will control the future of this conference. George Kliavkoff does not have a united group of 10. He's got a very divided group of 10. And if in fact it is, our sources are right, and I have no reason to believe that they're not. If in fact it is $25 million per school, and by the way, that's a 7-year grant of rights. Is Oregon signing a 7-year grant of rights for $25 million a year? Man, I can't see them doing that.
No, hell no. And I don't know. This is why I say, I mean, you go back to, yeah, exactly. This is why. Like, you go back to all this nonsense, right? And I know we always bring it up when we talk about the Pac-12, but this is why it was such an issue when you had the fight that George Kliavkoff put up about UCLA leaving and following SC.
Yeah.
And like, you shouldn't, honest to God, you should not have put up a fight with that. Instead, what you should have done is you should have tried to turn that into a positive and united the conference. That's what you should have done, because now you're looking at this power struggle. And I don't care if we're talking about, the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever. I don't care if we're talking about a football conference,
right,
or we're talking about, an office space, right? A team in an office doing something. If you have a power struggle, if there's a power divide, and that power divide is based in philosophical differences, you're going to have a real tough time moving forward on a united front. And by the way, you're going to have an even tougher time moving forward when the grass is clearly greener on the other side of the fence. Like, this isn't even a discussion. The grass is clearly greener on the Big Ten side of the fence, with all due respect to, George Kliavkoff. So that's why I say, your point about Oregon wanting a bigger slice of the pie, well, of course, because Oregon pulls more. Oregon's actually been, to like a playoff, a major bowl game. Like, they've done some things that schools like, Oregon State or Stanford or, whatever school you want to point to haven't been able to do yet. And frankly, it's incredible to me that a school like Arizona State, after it's just recently moved on from the Herm Edwards debacle, already has power at the table. Like, that's incredible to me. But it kind of paints this picture of, hey, this is where the conference is at because SC is gone, because UCLA is gone. So that's why I say, when I look at the Pac-10 now as it's currently constructed, this is very different than what the Big 12 went through and is going through with Oklahoma and Texas, right? And you see the differences. You see the fact that the Big 12 has already got a new TV deal and they're already pushing forward and they've added schools. And I'm not just talking about BYU, right? This really has nothing to do with BYU. It's more of a philosophical difference in leadership.
That's right.
Your mark gets it. And that's why I'm saying, like Kevin Warren, before he left, he understood, hey, I have to do this. I got to get this, TV deal done. I got to get the Big Ten after dark, deal done before I leave.
Well, and I think that's also playing a big part of this, that Peacock and NBC have essentially Big Ten after dark, and they're going to leverage UCLA and USC to deliver that product. And obviously, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that late window now belongs to NBC.
Yeah.
That late window no longer belongs to Pac-12 after dark. By the way, I would remind you that the first people who found out about this story yesterday were all of our members on the channel. I would encourage you to click the link we just put in the chat or click the join button on your phone right now. For $9.99 a month, you always get the details first as members of the program. We put it first. I did a video yesterday in our Instagram group, the Monty membership Instagram group yesterday, put that video in there telling you that there was divide amongst Pac-10 members. Anytime there's a breaking Jazz story, anytime we have details on Jazz trade talk, we always give it to our members first. Make sure you click the join button. Appreciate everybody. We're up to, 74 members now on the channel. And again, a lot of people ask us, well, what if I don't like it? You can cancel anytime. It is simply put $9.99 a month. You get an exclusive video every day, and that might be merch drops, which, by the way, our merch is coming this week. It should be good. We are waiting we're going to use Amazon drop shipping for all of our merchandise. So we are waiting for approval. They say it takes some time, but that sometime should be today. Our great graphic designer, Amber, delivered excellent graphics. You guys approved them last week on the show. So we should have a merch drop for you this week, but members are going to get that a full week ahead of time, and they get to kind of pick their own merch that they want. And by the way, if you're a member, we also will offer you pickup service on that merchandise as well. So I'm telling you, it pays to be a member. You get the information first. You get the contest first. You get the prizes first. You get the merch first.
Yeah.
And I think you get access to a great community. Our Instagram members only chat room has been fabulous. Click the link, become a member, join the Monty Show. All right. So again, if you're just tuning in this morning, I see a bunch of people just hopping on. We are talking about the latest details on this Pac-12 story from yesterday. And again, just to reset that, there is a divide amongst Pac-10 members, the remaining 10 members, about what to do with their distribution deal. We are told yesterday by TV industry sources that the Pac-10 has a deal on the table with ESPN and Amazon that is $25 million a year per school for 7 years. So it's $250 million for 7 years. And I think that is just an unworkable, untenable, unsustainable number if you are a Pac-10 member. But
with all due respect,
again, we were also told yesterday that the real issue is Southern California, anything south of the Bay Area, is a huge hole revenue-wise when it comes to selling a new TV deal, and that the Pac-10 continues to be in this situation where, do we expand first? Do we TV deal first? Because they have a TV deal for this coming season. We're talking about the 2024 season. So what should the Pac-10 do? If I'm the Pac-10, I do not sign a TV deal now. I do everything that I can do to get San Diego State into the conference. I do everything that I can do to get Fresno State into the conference. I do everything I can do to get SMU into the conference. And I find one more school, Colorado State or Boise State, seems to make a lot of sense as far as the footprint goes. But hey, I think you have a lot of options, frankly. I go and get San Diego State, SMU, Fresno State, and I think Colorado State or Boise State. Boise's building beautiful facilities. I think they are in the footprint. Geographically, they make a lot of sense. I've heard their name consistently with the Pac-10. That's where I would go. I would not just add 2 schools to react to USC and UCLA leaving. I was told that they would like to do a larger expansion, but I think there's some hesitation there. Because if they expand, you are making your TV and those expansion partners promises that right now I just don't think the Pac-10 can keep. Because I don't think they can guarantee, no matter who they add, that Oregon and Washington are staying. The issue is Oregon and Washington haven't left yet. And that tells me that they haven't gotten a concrete offer from the Big Ten. And now with Kevin Warren leaving the Big Ten, and we told you this when that news came out, Kevin Warren is going to be the new president of the Chicago Bears. That was a lifeline to the Pac-10. And if I am George Kliavkoff and the presidents remaining, the 10 remaining presidents in the Pac-10, I am aggressively expanding to 14 schools. I'm doing everything I can do right now to grow my footprint, get San Diego State. And this is also, by the way, part and parcel to what the Big 12 is doing. And it is curious that the Big 12 is not doing much right now. They have been very quiet, which I don't think is a bad thing. They got their TV deal. They're at $30 million or whatever it is per school. Like, okay, great. But what are you going to do to add value? Because you know now that TV deal says, hey, we're not going to pay on par. The TV partners essentially have said, we're not going to pay on par if you bring in a group of 5 school. If you bring in a San Diego State, we're not paying you what we're paying for a P5 program. So I think that's why you see so many people pointing the Big 12 at rating the Pac-10. But I don't know that that's an option. And again, this goes back to Mark Harlan, the athletic director at Utah, saying we're not leaving, which you talked about.
Yeah, I think it's you know, I don't want to come off as being Mr. Negative on the whole thing. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't.
I don't like usually when we talk about business dealings in sports, like whether it's this, you know, the Pac-12 thing or, the Jazz trade deadline,
Right.
like any business opportunity, usually there are things where you're like, okay, I could kind of see like where they're coming from. I might disagree with it, but you can kind of understand like why they're doing this or doing that. I just simply don't understand overall. It's not even that I particularly disagree with it. I just don't understand it. I don't understand how you have been in this position for a minute now. It's been, I mean, what has it been? What
months.
is it like at least months? I feel like we've been talking about this for, I mean, it hasn't been a year, but damn, it feels like a year, like for a long time now, long enough. And it's surprising to me that a commissioner, would look around the landscape in college football and see just how successful, the SEC is, just how successful, albeit a 2-team league, the Big Ten is, and then you look at the Big 12 making progress at least, and then you're sitting here on your hands. And I just, you look at this tweet out of Mark Harlan, like the arrogance in this tweet, the absolute pride on display in this tweet of we're not leaving.
But look at the original tweet from John Kurtz, who says the Pac-12 had a standalone game on Friday night with huge playoff implications, and their biggest brand that is leaving soon playing and was almost $3.5 million behind 2 non-OU Texas Big 12 teams. Bro, I mean, that's a huge problem, man.
And then to retweet that and say we're not leaving. So that's why I say, like.
And by the way, Mark Harlan, the athletic director at Utah, saying we're not leaving.
It's incredible.
And like you have Dr. Chris Hill, the former athletic director at Utah, saying our alumni base is in the Bay Area. Come on. You really think that your alumni is not going to follow you to the Big 12 if you go to the Big 12? Like, to me, you're putting yourself in an unlikely situation to succeed here. If you truly are steadfast at Utah, staying in the Pac-10, I think that's great. But you better be part of the solution. You better be proactively working behind the scenes to help the conference move forward. Because I just don't see that you're going to make as much money in the Pac-10 if this truly is where we are as a conference. And if George Kliavkoff and the membership are stuck on this idea of a TV deal before expansion, which again, I think is a mistake.
But like even that concept, not to cut you off, but that concept is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You are so hell-bent on signing a TV deal before you expand that you're just sitting here meddling. Like,
it's crazy
to me. And again, I'm not the Pac-10, Pac-12 commissioner. I'm not some football coach or AD or whatever, right? Like, I'm not in it. So maybe I'm missing something here. But to me, it makes way more sense to expand and then do the deal.
It does.
Yes, it does. Then, like, your TV partners know how many teams you are. Like, they know the markets. Like, you have an actual foundation to negotiate off of. I mean, you can't go to somebody. It's like this Comcast thing, right? This is a perfect example, the Comcast thing, where Comcast, has been overpaying and didn't know it, and the Pac-12 knew it. That whole thing we talked about last week. It's a perfect example. You're doing business not knowing how many people actually subscribe in Comcast land.
That's crazy.
Like, how is that possible? Like, it's the same thing.
But what else does that say? And I want to get to your comments because I really want to hear from you guys on this. Drop your comments. Like, do you think that the Pac-12 survives? I think is one of the bigger questions out of this. But what happens to Pac-12 networks? Because I think absolutely no matter what, I think the Pac-12 networks are going away as we currently know them. I don't think you need, multiple streams or multiple feeds. You need one channel, the Pac-12 network, right? But I don't think in cable country that's worked, and I think it has cost them a ton of money. And now they are moving out. They are closing their facility down and moving to the East Bay, San Ramon, California. And they're going to, by what's been described as build a production house. Note they didn't say we're moving Pac-12 networks to San Ramon. They said we are building a production house. I think you're going to see that this is not going to be a network anymore. And I think that there are, and I've been told repeatedly, that you have presidents who want to stop dumping money into Pac-12 networks. Mm-hmm. And I think that's exactly right. And I was tweeting yesterday with some people over whether or not, there is actually a balance of power. But I actually don't think there's any question that there is a balance of power. And I think when you look at the way that this has played out, I just think these presidents don't any longer want to put bad money after bad money into the Pac-12 networks because it just hasn't worked. They've
how
lost
can you blame them?
Hundreds. Yeah, they've lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And at this point, really, the potential between the money you've spent and the money you've not made, it's multiple $billion at this point.
And there's no way back.
Yeah.
That's the problem. There's no way back on the Pac-12 network. There's just not because, again, you're on Dish. You're not on DirecTV. You're not on, like, with all due respect to Dish and its customers, like, DirecTV is where you need to be to make the most money. Like again, that's just the reality of the landscape. And that's why when this conversation, that we've been having for 25 minutes now, at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about the fact that there is a philosophical difference of opinion on whether streaming can be a tier 1 option, meaning can a streaming service, Amazon Prime Video, can you have all your games on Amazon Prime Video and be successful?
Not even all your games, just your biggest games. And right now, like Oregon, Washington would arguably be the biggest football game in the conference, right? If Oregon and Washington are on Amazon Prime Sports, how much does that hurt you? Versus Oregon and Washington being the 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern kickoff on ESPN and ESPN Plus. I think it's significantly less viewership. I do, and I know that you have hundreds of millions of subscribers on Amazon, but that doesn't translate. Soccer mom probably isn't watching Pac-12 football in Florida.
I wonder if Amazon has, and I know they have access to this type of stuff, but like, I wonder if in this, air quotes, negotiation or conversation, this window in time for the conference, if Amazon has provided George Kliavkoff and the team at the Pac-12 conference with detailed subscriber numbers, meaning, hey, yeah, we have this many, subscribers or whatever to Amazon
Prime Video users.
Users. But how many of those inside of that number, how many of those people actually are sports consumers?
And I think Eric and Raleigh way back in the day, and I don't know if Eric's here today, but I think Eric and Raleigh back in the day when we first started talking about that made that exact point. Hey, it's cool that you have all these people that use Amazon Prime Video.
Yeah.
But does Carol in Lake Forest, California, is she watching, the Housewives of Orange County, or is she watching Pac-12 football? Because I don't think just because you have, and what is the number, 400 million or however many
like that,
Amazon Prime members there are, that has nothing to do with how many of them will watch football. Because if you look at the drop-off the NFL saw on Thursday Night Football being on Prime Video, I actually think Amazon did well with that, and I think everybody's pretty happy with it. But the Pac-12 already has, you're fitting all their viewers into a thimble at this point already. That number is going to shrink more because people, are not going to know where to find the game right off the bat. You're going to have to retrain them.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people who find it clunky to have to switch apps on a smart TV. I already complain about that. We did it last night. My wife was watching Downton Abbey last night. And I'm like, yeah, but or basketball, but over here in Property Brothers, and I've got Dame, and
as of July 5th, 2022, this is saying there's 163.5 million people with a Prime account, and they're forecasting forward that number is going to push 180 million by 2025.
So let's call it 100. Even if you go to 180 million,
yeah.
How many of those people are watching Prime Sports? Do you guys know that Amazon has Prime Sports Talk? Are you guys aware? Are you guys at all aware that Amazon Sports does live sports talk every day
in the app?
I had no idea they were doing that until a couple of weeks ago. Now, I don't know. I don't understand the philosophy at Amazon. I don't understand the marketing at Amazon. I don't understand because you don't see Amazon marketing the NFL. I see the NFL marketing Amazon,
which is a big difference, by the way.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
I had no idea there was live streaming sports talk video on Amazon Sports. I had no idea. None whatsoever.
What are you talking about, man?
And this is what I do for a living. I do live streaming sports talk. I had no idea until a couple of weeks ago that Amazon even existed in that space. I had no idea. I don't know.
It is. I will maintain that. I think the positive side of Amazon is that they do have a base of people that are already on their platform and could potentially be turned into a sports fan. I think that's the positive. But I have to agree that when you're talking to someone who, like you guys who consume live streaming sports talk every day, how many of you actually knew that Amazon did that? If we didn't know that, I have to imagine that not, most consumers who, are just kind of living life and doing their thing and have kids and have all this stuff that they're handling that grown-ass adults handle. Like, I don't think you probably know about that. But I would be really curious. I think it's a great question.
Yep. The Monty Show every day is presented by our good friends at The Advocates.
We got stuck in traffic at a construction zone, and I got rear-ended at 80 miles an hour, so I needed help. They just stepped in and pretty much took care of everything. If you're in a motor vehicle accident or situation, call The Advocates.
TheAdvocates.com. Present the Monty Show every single day. You never go into your pocket. No retainers, no consultation fees. You don't pay the advocates until they win your case. Chat with an attorney live online at theadvocates.com. All right, let's get your thoughts in here on this. Would you watch Pac-12 football on Amazon? Do you watch sports on Amazon? What are your thoughts on that? Let's see where we are. Somebody gave us a $10 tip. Let me see. Larry Pilgrim, good morning to you. Most smart TVs come preloaded with the Amazon app. It's easy to access. Yeah, my TV has the Amazon app. But the difference is there is a convenience factor to, the NFL's on Fox. Let me just go over to Fox 13.
But it's right there. He knows the channel that football on Fox is. You know the channel. And I don't disagree, Larry, that when you open the Amazon app, the Amazon has done a good job, like with Thursday Night Football, putting it right there on the homepage so you can just get to it really quick.
But let's be honest, though. If you have a smart TV and you click up to get to your apps, because I have a Samsung, 900-inch rocket ship in my living room, right? I think I have a 70-inch or whatever.
Right, beautiful TV.
I click up on my TV remote. So not my DirecTV remote, my TV remote.
Right.
I click the menu up button and it pulls up all of my apps. If I scroll over to Amazon Prime Video and I highlight it, it'll tell me Thursday Night Football is live. And then it'll say Downton Abbey, and then it'll say Chicago PD, and then it'll say, so you're right, it's not difficult to get to. But here's the problem. If the National Football League saw a significant drop in viewership from broadcast Thursday Night Football to stream Thursday Night Football. And I think they had issues with announcers. I think they had issues with audio. Yep. I think they worked all of that out as the season went on. Al Michaels and I thought Kirk Herbstreit was incredibly awkward at times, but they got better, right? So they did a good job with the broadcast and they still saw a precipitous decline in viewership.
Yeah.
That's the National Football League. What do you say to the Pac-12, who already doesn't have the biggest games in the country, not close to the biggest games in the country? How many people are willing to go over to Amazon Prime to watch that? When Alabama, Florida, when Ohio State, Michigan State.
Dude, let's get...
The Garden Variety big conference game is on.
But let's get into the nitty-gritty too, right? You have that dynamic, and as a sports fan, like Wednesday night, tomorrow night, Jazz play again. So tomorrow night, I can guarantee you that I will be flipping around and I'll have 683-1 dialed in. I'll have probably 206 dialed in. I'll probably have 216 dialed in.
No, you know what I'll have dialed in? I'll have 725, 726, 727. You know why? Because that's the NBA League Pass.
Yes.
I know the numbers. I'm a DirecTV subscriber. I know the channel numbers I need to go to on a regular basis. Because frankly, that's what I watch regularly. I'm either in my DVR watching... Last night we watched some Property Brothers. We watched some X Games. We watched some on the DVR.
Right.
Flipping back and forth to basketball. Flipping back and forth to Property Brothers. I think that's probably how most Americans during the week watch TV. But on the weekends, I know where the NFL Sunday Ticket is. I know where the League Pass is. I can tell you I know where the MLB package is. I know where to find Cubs baseball. And you're right. If it goes to Amazon, Larry, I'll know how to find the Pac-12 on Amazon. But I am a diehard Utah Pac-12 fan.
Hey, by the way, where'd the Sunday Ticket go to? Anybody wondering?
And by the way, speaking of YouTube TV, when people cut the cord, a new study came out, a new survey came out yesterday. Mm-hmm. Where are people going when they cut the cord? So when they stop DirecTV or they stop Comcast cable what's the number one service they go to? YouTube TV. And it's not close. Yeah. Notice they didn't say, well, I need my sports, so I'm going to... No, they're going to YouTube TV. That's, to me, the future. And Larry Scott sat in front of us all those years ago now at Pac-12 Media Days.
It's on the channel, I believe.
It is. And said, because I asked him specifically about a deal with Google. He said, we're working on it. We're working on it. And it never came. And that's where Pac-12 football should live.
Yeah.
Pac-12 football should live on YouTube TV.
Yep.
But it won't. And that's it. That's a huge problem. Larry, I appreciate the tip. Thanks so much. Larry also says college football is regional for the most part, and sports bars have DirecTV with games on so hard to really know how the true numbers are.
Well,
totally
that's
agree.
That's another side of the conversation, because how many sports bars are going to be willing to add yet another cost to their bottom line. Because,
I don't think a lot of them. I really
right?
don't.
Like you think about, DirecTV, Dish, you look at, we'll use the Break as an example, right? Great sports bar here in town. Love them. Club sandwich. I'm about it. Let's go. Let's do it. They have great TVs with all kinds of different programming on them. No, they don't have YouTube TV streaming. They don't have Amazon Prime Sports streaming. They have ESPN or NFL Network or the major player in the space. I have to imagine, not that I spend much time there on the weekends, but on the weekends, I have to imagine Fox is probably on the tube with a football game.
We've been, Mrs. Monty and I were at the Break in December on a Sunday morning. All the NFL games are there. I don't know. Will they do that? I have no idea. San Diego State says, I went to Sling TV, then switched to YouTube TV.
Right.
Good morning, NY Monty fan says, I have YouTube TV for almost 2 years now. You stud.
Yeah, and by the way, I should say this. When the Jazz roll out the new TV deal, I have to imagine that Jazz basketball will be available on YouTube TV. I'd be really surprised if it wasn't, just because of how much of a player they are in the space. If that happens, I would definitely consider using YouTube TV. We use it every day here. It's got everything else I need. I would have no trouble using it.
By the way, I also think that's one of the things that we talked about last week was that news that Comcast customers can now stream Jazz basketball. So I think that was really interesting. Wow, a lot of YouTube TV subscribers on this show. Eric and Raleigh says having the channels grouped together is a huge win. It is. I agree with that. Boyd Lake. And the NFL is not used to shrinking and declining anywhere. Yeah. I would agree with that. Let's see. Who else is in this morning? Maury Alvarez, first one in, says, morning, fellas. Working, so I'll catch you after the show. Maury, appreciate you. Teddy Wayman, what's up with you, bud? Teddy, you got to come to my house, dude. Got to come to my house. Shower's a problem, man.
I want better fucking execution.
The Teddy Wayman bat signal is up.
Are we clear on that?
He says, hit the like button. Indeed. Kenai Johnson, how are you? Hasn't the Pac-12 been doomed? I mean, the Pac-10, they are doomed. I honestly, if it's $25 million a year, which sources told us yesterday, the current offer on the table for the Pac-12 combined is $25 million a year per school for 10 schools for 7 years. And there are, again, if you're just tuning into the show, Oregon, Washington, and the Arizona schools have not said that they will ratify that grant of rights. They won't sign the grant of rights on that deal.
Yeah.
And I think that is there. I think there's a divided conference. I really do. Provo Cougar fan says, where is global warming when you really could use it? It is cold this morning in Utah.
Yes.
Depending on where you are. I know we have, Vegas, Phoenix. We were looking at our numbers yesterday where most of our viewers are. I don't know how it happened, but Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Phoenix, you guys are coming in strong. Now, by far, Utah, Salt Lake City is by far our largest market, northern Utah. But it's good to see you guys from around the Pacific Southwest.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys. Eric and Raleigh is here this morning. Let's just get the NCAA football down to 2014 conferences
That's what
already.
I'm saying, dude. We're messing around with 18 different conferences. Just group them together. It just is what it is.
I don't think that's a bad idea. Football at 50, presented by our good friends at Papa Murphy's Pizza in 10 minutes. James Knight, all the way in Australia, mate.
James, did you see what I sent to you in the group chat last night? You
little Josh Giddey love.
Yeah, you conveniently ignored me. The other day on the show, you said I don't watch, Oklahoma City Thunder basketball, and I was watching last night.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was pretty
Buddy
good
can
last
play,
night.
dude.
Ooh. Jazz basketball talk in 20 minutes. Stick around for that. Andy H. says Royal Palm, Florida, 70 degrees. Hey, thanks.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it,
Appreciate
dude.
that.
Thanks, bud.
Appreciate that. We were talking about Tampa, Florida yesterday. Tampa, Florida had good weather yesterday. Landon Young says, good morning. Landon, nice to see you. Mr. Preston, who's a member of the program, says, good morning. It's a bit frosty out, but let's go.
Yes.
Exactly right. Brett Robbins says, I can't wait for Dorian. Yeah, Lopes fan Gabe, who's a member, says, good morning. Capazzo, good morning to you. Provo Cougar fan says, haven't Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal demanded a higher revenue share than everyone else? That depends on who you believe. I've heard multiple times that Oregon and Washington are in line to get a larger share of the pot. Well, I mean, Washington has the most vocal president in the conference right now. She has been very vocal about wanting to slash expenses on Pac-12 network. And I think she's one of the people leading the charge to eliminate Pac-12 network and turn it into a production house, as we know they're doing. She's been one of the people leading that.
I love this concept, though, that Stanford and Cal, could, like, even the notion that they've demanded a bigger slice of the pie. Who the hell are you to demand a bigger slice of the pie? Like, Stanford
and Cal have been a weight around the neck of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I mean, they have... I mean, neither one of them is relevant in football. And Stanford is slightly relevant in basketball. And it's just been so difficult to consistently perform at a high level at Stanford or Cal because the academics at Stanford are... I mean, it's tough to get into Stanford, man. It's such... And I think the other thing is people don't realize how small of a school Stanford is. It's not a big school. It is not. It's not UCLA. It's not...
No.
It's not a big school whatsoever. Eric says no one in the Bay Area cares about Stanford or Cal. They don't. I agree with that. Capazzo says 21 in the Jeezy this morning. Oh, what a fine day. Good morning, St. George. Good to see you. K-Do, Rock Chalk, what's up? On top of this TV deal, you have the repayments back to Comcast. Not good for the PAC. I mean, Gesundheit. It's not good for the PAC at all.
Yeah.
The Pac-12... By the way, did anybody also notice that they fired the president of the Pac-12 networks and have not replaced them? Do you think that position gets filled?
Not until after this is settled.
I don't think it ever gets filled because, again, and I could be completely wrong about this. We talk to a lot of people in the industry.
Yeah.
Based on those conversations, I think Pac-12 networks goes away. There's no reason to have a president when you're not going to have a network.
Yeah.
I think Pac-12 network goes away. I truly do. I don't think
maybe it does, dude.
I don't think it continues. I just thought it was interesting. It was pointed out to me yesterday. They haven't filled those positions they eliminated. Like that to me makes a lot of sense. Tim Bruckmiller says, does Colorado and Utah want to sign this deal when they have an invite to the Big 12? I don't know that they have an invite to the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't think you can guarantee that, dude. I certainly, Tim, I'm with you, bro. Like again, in the membership Instagram group, members only group, we were talking about this yesterday for probably a good hour or so. Like, I literally hate the position Utah is in right now, where you have an AD that's very arrogant, very prideful, very boastful,
but very good at his job, though.
Well,
he's been, but they've gotten facility upgrades. You continue to see the infrastructure and support that athletics is getting at Utah.
Yeah.
So he's done a good job. I'm with you. I don't agree on his stance on we're not leaving.
The tough part for me, like, I don't disagree. Yes, he's done all that. But it very much to me feels like, and I could be wrong, but it feels like to me, what good is any of that if you're in a conference that just doesn't matter? It does, like, the Pac-12 is irrelevant. Like, it's one team. And it's two teams on the years that Utah, gets that final stage of the season, and that's and again, I'm not a BYU homer or a Utah homer. Like, I didn't grow up in the state, so I'm just telling it how I see it, and I'm just simply saying, what good is the best program in the country if you're in some, like, Clemson? What good is Clemson in the ACC? Right? Like, what good is Ohio State in the Big Ten? It doesn't matter, dude. Like,
but the Big Ten at least makes a ton of money.
Right.
It's not a deep or quality football conference. Any way you slice it, that's a crappy football conference. But what do? They put Michigan and Ohio State in the college football playoff, and they make money. I don't know what else you're trying to do.
What's the real difference then, right? Because if you're not better on the field, because this is the age-old debate that we've had on this show a million times.
A million times, yes, sir.
The Pac-12 is way better on the field than the Big Ten, right? And the Pac-12 arguably is just as good on the field, top to bottom, as the Big 12, yet somehow, some way, we find ourselves in a position where we get to talk about, hey, the Pac-12 is suffering and likely isn't going to survive because they have bad leadership, and the other the other four conferences have, good to, or decent to good to elite leadership. And so when we talk about Utah, That's where I get frustrated. Not because I think Utah sucks or because they're not good enough. They're plenty good enough.
They're plenty good enough.
They have great facilities. Like, they're a great school. But when your AD has this philosophy of we're not going anywhere and we're committed to some conference that hasn't done anything for us, in my opinion, like when you compare them to the other conferences that we're talking about, I just don't get it. And that's why I say this narrative about, the Big 12 adding schools, like, you really needed. Ideally, you would have gotten into the Big 12 in that expansion window when they added BYU and, and all those 3 other schools. That's when you would have, ideally would have liked to have gotten in, but you didn't. And so now I'm left to wonder, if you're going to publicly say on Twitter, hey, we're not leaving, and the other conferences aren't expanding, then don't cry me a river about 7 years and 25 a year. I don't feel bad for you. That's the bed you've made.
Yeah. Let's see. Jasketball says, is Cam Rising coming back or is his career done? No, he's coming back. He is coming back,
Which,
no doubt.
Again, is the other shame in all this. The boys are coming back.
Yeah.
Brant's coming back. Like,
yeah,
Cam
by the way,
Rising's
don't forget, and you have a chance to ask Brant Keithy about coming back, because Brant and our guy Max Tooley will join us for the Monty Big 5-0 birthday bash, March 10th. March 10th at Maverick Center. Both Brant Keithy and Max Tooley will be there for you. That's going to be an incredible event. We're working on that as we speak. It is going to be ridiculous. That is going to be so much fun.
Yes.
It is March 10th right here at the Maverick Center. The Kansas City Mavericks are in town to take on your Utah Grizzlies. And we are going to have Max and Brant come on out. If I could get the screen. If I could get the banner off the screen. Max and Brant Keithy are going to come out March 10th. They're going to watch the game with you. We're going to have a fully catered meal for you. If you are a member, you are in. And we're going to give a bunch of spots away to the show. So make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter and Instagram. The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show, and SLC Supercars, because we're going to do some
SLC
social
Jake.
stuff. SLC Jake. SLC Jake. Let me SLC Jake. That is just so burned onto my brain.
Yeah.
SLC,
I had that name for like 2 years, man.
SLC Jake.
It's a great name.
On Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
SLC Jake. Follow Jake on Twitter and Instagram, SLC Jake. You can follow me, The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show on Twitter and Instagram.
By the way, I'm at 998 followers on Instagram. Can we get the job done
Can
today,
we get
dude?
the job done,
Come on,
please?
bro. Come on,
you
man.
Casuals.
Come on now.
998.
Come on.
That's awesome. Follow Jake on Twitter and Instagram, SLC Jake on Twitter and Instagram. Couple more of your comments real quick before football at 50. Mapes, what's up? Success follows risk takers. Death comes to any company going by the status quo, and Utah is taking the status quo stance.
Yeah.
But isn't that what the conference is doing? Because if I'm the Pac-12, I'm all in on Amazon Prime Sports. I would go all in on streaming. I would. Because you're going to suffer in the short term, but I think you're going to thrive in the long term. Amazon does not do anything half-assed. I think I would go all in on it. I just would. Eric in Raleigh says, why does Jake hate cars now?
I don't.
Yes, he does. Barfing Chicken says, 5 years from now, Utah beats Eastern Washington in the Pac-12 championship to advance to the Poutine Bowl in Pocatello, Idaho.